This is not another message. This is a turning point. Because from this moment, your story is being rewritten. There are moments in life when everything before no longer defines what comes next. Moments when the past loses its authority. Moments when delay, pain, and confusion are overridden by divine intention. This is one of those moments. You may not feel it yet. You may not see evidence yet. But something has shifted. Not around you, within the order of your life. The pen has changed hands. What was written in struggle is being rewritten in purpose. Hear this carefully. Your story did not end where it became difficult. What you went through was not the conclusion. It was the interruption. The betrayal, the loss, the stagnation, the unanswered prayers, those were chapters, not the ending. And now the narrative is changing. God does not edit stories the way humans do. He does not erase pages. He redeems them. He takes what looked like failure and reframed it as preparation. That means nothing you endured was wasted. Some of you are still carrying the weight of old labels, words spoken over you in weakness, judgments made when people didn't understand your process. You internalized them, and slowly they shaped how you saw yourself. But from this moment, that identity is being dismantled. You are not who they said you were. You are not what happened to you. You are not defined by the delay. You are defined by what God is doing now. There is a reason the pressure intensified before relief came, a reason confusion increased before clarity returned, a reason you felt like everything was falling apart right before alignment began. Because stories change at the breaking point. If you've been feeling emotionally exhausted, spiritually stretched, or mentally worn down, it's not because you're weak. It's because the old season was resisting its expiration. But seasons don't last forever, and neither do chapters. What is happening now is not random. You are being repositioned. Conversations you haven't had yet will open doors you couldn't force before. Opportunities that ignored you will suddenly recognize you. Favor will locate you without explanation, not because people changed, but because the story changed. There are people who only knew you in survival mode. They never saw your strength because circumstances kept you in containment. But when God rewrites a story, He doesn't just bless privately. He restores openly. What was hidden will be seen. What was mocked will be honored. What was delayed will arrive with weight. This is why you couldn't quit. This is why you were sustained when you should have collapsed. This is why grace carried you through moments you don't even talk about. Because the rewrite requires you alive. From this moment forward, your responses will change. Your discernment will sharpen. You will stop begging for what is already aligned to come. You will walk away from what no longer fits the story being written. You're not losing anything. You're shedding old drafts. Some of you stayed too long in chapters that already ended. You kept rereading pages God already turned. But now there is a divine urgency to move forward. Not in panic, but in confidence. Because the next chapter demands boldness. You will no longer explain yourself to people who only understood the old version of you. You will no longer shrink to stay accepted. You will no longer tolerate cycles that drain your assignment. This rewrite requires separation. Not everyone can go where you're going. Not everyone can understand the process that shaped you. And that's okay. This story wasn't written for everyone to read. It was written for fulfillment. If you're listening to this and something inside you feels stirred, pay attention. That stirring is recognition. It's the moment your spirit agrees with what heaven already decided. From this moment, the pace will change. From this moment, resistance will weaken. From this moment, clarity will replace confusion. This is not hype. This is alignment. And this is only the beginning. There is a reason certain things had to fall apart before they could come together. A reason relationships shifted, doors closed, and plans collapsed without warning. It wasn't chaos. It was editing. It wasn't loss. It was alignment. The story you were living had reached a point where it could no longer carry the weight of what was coming next. So the rewrite began. God does not rewrite stories casually. He rewrites them when the current version limits destiny. When the environment no longer matches the assignment. When the people around you are familiar with your pain, but not prepared for your elevation. That is why you felt isolated. That is why conversations started feeling shallow. That is why things you once tolerated suddenly became unbearable. Your spirit outgrew the chapter. Some of the delays you faced were not resistance from outside forces, but restraint from above. You were being held back, not to frustrate you, but to protect the rewrite. Because if you had arrived too early, you would have entered with the wrong narrative, the wrong expectations, and the wrong people. Timing matters when stories change. Think about it. If the rewrite had happened earlier, you might have misinterpreted it. You might have attributed it to luck, coincidence, or human effort. But now, after everything you've survived, there will be no confusion about the source. You will know this was divine. That's why the pressure was heavy. That's why the waiting was uncomfortable. That's why the silence lasted longer than you expected. It wasn't absence. It was preparation for clarity. Some of you prayed for answers, but instead you received endurance. You asked for solutions, but instead you received strength. At the time, it felt unfair. But now you can see, strength was necessary because the next chapter demands stability. God is not rewriting your story to impress people. He is rewriting it to sustain purpose. What's coming requires maturity. It requires discernment. It requires the ability to stand without applause and move without permission from people who don't understand your calling. This is why the rewrite starts internally before it shows externally. Your mindset is changing. Your reactions are changing. The things that used to provoke fear no longer have the same grip. The voices that once controlled your decisions are losing influence. You are no longer driven by desperation. You're being guided by clarity. That is the rewrite at work. Pay attention to what you're no longer attracted to. Pay attention to what no longer excites you. Pay attention to what now feels heavy instead of familiar. Those are signs of transition. God often rewrites stories by first changing desires. Because if he only changed circumstances without changing perspective, you would rebuild the same patterns in a new place. So he starts with the heart, then the mind, then the environment. That's why this season feels inward before it becomes outward. Some people will misinterpret this phase. They'll say you changed. They'll say you became distant. They'll say you're no longer the same. And they'll be right, but not in the way they think. You didn't change for ego. You changed for alignment. Old versions of you were built for survival. The new version is built for stewardship. Survival needed hustle. Stewardship requires wisdom. Survival accepted anything that kept you afloat. Stewardship chooses only what can support the future, and not everything qualifies. This rewrite will require you to let go of people who only knew you in brokenness. Not because they're bad, but because they're attached to a version of you that no longer exists. And if you try to carry them into the new chapter, you'll feel constantly misunderstood. That's not rejection, that's transition. When God rewrites a story, he also changes the cast. Some characters exit quietly, some leave loudly, some drift away naturally, and some must be removed forcefully because they refuse to respect the rewrite. Don't fight those exits. You are not losing relationships, you are gaining clarity. The most dangerous thing you can do during a rewrite is cling to familiarity. Because familiarity feels safe, even when it's limiting. But God is not interested in keeping you comfortable. He is committed to making you effective. So the rewrite may feel uncomfortable at first. You may feel like you're walking without a script, making decisions without validation, trusting instincts you didn't have before. But that's because the old script expired and the new one is being revealed step by step. Faith grows in rewrites. This is why you've had to trust without seeing, move without guarantees, release things without knowing what will replace them. You're learning how to walk by alignment, not assurance, and that skill will sustain you later. Some of you were frustrated because you couldn't explain what you were going through. Words failed you. Descriptions fell short. Even prayer felt different. That's because rewrites are experienced before they are understood. Understanding comes after obedience. Right now, the most important thing is not clarity. It's cooperation. Agree with the process. Stop resisting the changes. Stop trying to revive chapters that already closed. Stop negotiating with seasons that already ended. The rewrite doesn't wait for comfort. It responds to surrender. From this moment forward, you will notice subtle but undeniable shifts. Less fear, less urgency, less anxiety about proving yourself. More confidence, more peace, more discernment. These are not personality changes. They are signs of authorship. God is taking control of the narrative. And when he does, the outcome is never average. What's being written now will make sense later. What feels confusing now will feel necessary later. What feels lonely now will feel protective later. Because rewrites are only uncomfortable when you're still attached to the old version. But once you let go, once you trust the author, you'll realize something powerful. The story is finally moving in your favor. There is a phase in every rewrite where restoration begins quietly. Not all at once, not loudly, but intentionally. It doesn't start with applause. It starts with alignment. And this is the phase many people misunderstand because they expect restoration to feel dramatic. But real restoration feels stable. It feels like peace where chaos used to live. It feels like clarity where confusion once ruled. It feels like confidence returning without explanation. That is how you know the rewrite has progressed. Some of you thought restoration would begin when everything was returned immediately. But God often restores in layers. First your inner world, then your discernment, then your authority, and only after that, your surroundings. Because restored surroundings without restored identity would collapse again. This is why you're thinking differently now. You're not reacting emotionally to everything anymore. You're not panicking over delays. You're not chasing validation. You're no longer desperate to be understood. That's not numbness. That's stability. Your identity is being re-established. You're no longer identifying yourself by what you lost, what failed, or what didn't work. You're beginning to recognize yourself by what you carry. Wisdom, resilience, insight, strength. These were forged in seasons you didn't choose, but they are essential for the chapter being written now. And this is where the rewrite becomes visible, because when identity shifts, behavior follows. You stop explaining yourself. You stop tolerating disrespect. You stop negotiating your worth. You start walking with quiet authority. You choose peace over chaos. You value alignment over attention, and people notice. Some will feel uncomfortable around you, not because you changed negatively, but because your growth exposes their stagnation. Your clarity will confront their confusion. Your boundaries will highlight their lack of discipline. That tension is unavoidable. But understand this, you are not here to make people comfortable with your evolution. You are here to fulfill the purpose attached to your name. The rewrite includes vindication, but not the kind driven by ego. Not the loud "I told you so" moments. Vindication comes when the fruit speaks for itself, when progress becomes undeniable, when outcomes silence opinions. And that vindication is coming. Those who underestimated you will watch you move with precision. Those who doubted you will hear your voice carry weight. Those who dismissed you will witness consistency where they expected collapse. Not because you fought them, but because God rewrote the narrative. There is something powerful about succeeding quietly after surviving publicly. It changes how people perceive you. It shifts the room when you enter. It alters how your name is spoken when you're not present. That's what happens when the rewrite reaches maturity. Some of you are entering a season where you'll be trusted again. Trusted with responsibility. Trusted with influence. Trusted with opportunities you once lost. But this time you'll carry them differently. You won't abuse access. You won't rush decisions. You won't repeat old mistakes. Because you've been refined. That's why restoration is taking this form. You're not just getting things back, you're getting discernment to sustain them. You're not just being lifted, you're being grounded. This is why your circle is smaller now. This is why distractions are fewer. This is why your tolerance for chaos has disappeared. Your environment is being curated. God is rewriting your story in a way that supports longevity, not just momentum. Flashy success would have destroyed you before, but stable elevation will keep you effective. So don't rush this phase. The quiet wins matter, the internal victories matter, the peace you're experiencing now matters. It's all part of the rewrite. And soon, very soon, what's been happening internally will begin to manifest externally. Doors will open without resistance. Conversations will shift in your favor. Recognition will come without campaigning, because alignment attracts provision. Some of you will step into rooms you once prayed for and realize you no longer feel intimidated by them. That's when you'll know. You belong there now. The rewrite prepared you. Others will reconnect with opportunities once rejected you. But this time, you'll have the leverage to choose. You won't chase acceptance. You'll evaluate alignment. That is restoration at work. And let me say this clearly. Your story is not being rewritten to impress people who doubted you. It's being rewritten to empower people who will follow after you. Your survival, your growth, your transformation, these will become reference points for others. Your life will speak. People will ask how you stayed standing, how you didn't break, how you recovered, how you regained clarity after so much pressure. And you won't need long explanations. You'll simply be evidence. This is why the rewrite required endurance. This is why you couldn't quit when you wanted to. This is why grace carried you through moments you barely survived. Because your story is not just personal, it's purposeful. And now the rewrite is moving into its most visible phase. There comes a moment in every rewrite when the internal work gives way to visible movement. Not rushed, not forced, but undeniable. This is the stage where doors begin to open without struggle, where resistance fades without confrontation, and where favor begins to speak louder than effort ever did. This is where you are now. You are stepping into a phase where what once required exhausting labor will now require simple alignment, where doors you knocked on for years will open without you touching them, where conversations that once felt tense will suddenly feel cooperative. That is not luck. That is authorization. When God rewrites a story, He doesn't just change outcomes, He changes access. He positions you in rooms you were once excluded from. He aligns you with people who recognize your value without you having to prove it. He causes your name to be mentioned in spaces you were never invited into. And when that happens, momentum accelerates. You will notice it first in small ways. Things moving faster than usual, responses coming quicker, opportunities presenting themselves without delay. These are not coincidences. They are signals that the rewrite has reached its execution phase. The preparation season is ending. The manifestation season is beginning. Some of you spent years feeling invisible, your effort unnoticed, your contributions ignored, your potential questioned. But invisibility was never rejection. It was protection. You were hidden until the story was ready to unfold publicly. Now, that covering is lifting, and when it lifts, you will not need to announce yourself. You will not need to explain your journey. The clarity in your voice, the confidence in your decisions, and the consistency in your results will speak for you. Favor does not shout, it positions. You may feel unprepared for how quickly things will move next. That's normal. Acceleration often feels uncomfortable after long seasons of delay. But understand this. What's coming may feel sudden to you, but it has been in motion longer than you realize. Behind the scenes, arrangements were being made, alignments were being formed, paths were being cleared. What you experience as sudden is the result of long-term orchestration. That's why you don't need to rush now. You don't need to panic. You don't need to grab everything at once. The rewrite includes pacing. God will not overwhelm you with everything at once. He will release what you can steward, when you can steward it. And as you prove faithful with what's placed in your hands, more will follow. This is how sustainable elevation works. Some of you are about to receive opportunities that look similar to what you lost, but don't be confused. They are not replacements. They are upgrades. What returns will carry more authority, more clarity, and more control than what left. This time you won't enter powerless. You won't enter unaware. You won't enter dependent on validation. You will enter positioned. Pay attention to how your discernment sharpens in this phase. You will sense when something is aligned and when it's not. You will feel peace around the right opportunities and unease around distractions. Trust that. The rewrite includes heightened perception. Not every open door is yours, but the right ones will feel effortless. And here's something important. Not everyone will celebrate this phase with you. Some people were comfortable with you struggling. They could relate to your pain, but not your progress. Your elevation will confuse them. Do not shrink to preserve familiarity. You didn't survive everything you survived just to stay small. You didn't endure isolation just to remain unseen. You didn't grow in silence just to mute your purpose now. This is not the time to apologize for growth. The rewrite gives you permission to take up space, to speak with authority, to move with confidence, to choose alignment over approval. You may feel moments of hesitation, old patterns resurfacing, old fears whispering doubts. That's normal. But those voices no longer have authority. They belong to a version of you that has already been edited out. You are not starting over. You are continuing correctly. The rewritten story does not erase your past. It redeems it. Your scars become credibility. Your endurance becomes influence. Your survival becomes evidence that transformation is possible. And people will watch. They will study how you move, how you speak, how you choose. And without realizing it, they will draw strength from your journey. Your life will quietly give permission to others to believe again. That is the power of a rewritten story. You are entering a season where growth is visible, progress is steady, and favor is undeniable. It won't be loud, but it will be consistent. And consistency is what changes narratives permanently. This is not a temporary high. This is a permanent shift. The story is no longer working against you. It is working through you. And there is still more ahead. When a story is rewritten by God, it never stops at personal victory. It always moves toward purpose, influence, and legacy. What begins as healing becomes authority. What starts as restoration becomes assignment. And what was once survival transforms into impact. This is the phase you are entering now. You are no longer just recovering from what happened. You are no longer simply finding your footing. You are stepping into a place where your life begins to carry weight beyond yourself, where your decisions matter not only to you, but to others connected to your obedience. This is where responsibility increases, and that is not a burden. It is an honor. Some of you wondered why the process took so long, why the lessons were so intense, why the pruning felt so personal. It's because shallow preparation cannot sustain deep influence. And the influence attached to your life is not small. God does not entrust authority to people who have not been refined. Authority is not volume. Authority is not position. Authority is not visibility. Authority is alignment under pressure. That's why you had to learn restraint. That's why you had to learn patience. That's why you had to learn when to speak and when to stay silent. These were not personality traits being formed. They were leadership traits. The rewrite was training you. Now you will notice something different about how people respond to you. Your words will land differently. Your presence will carry calm. Your decisions will bring stability. Even when you are quiet, people will sense clarity around you. That is authority, not because you demand it, but because it's recognized. Some of you will be called into roles you never planned for. People will ask for your perspective, your guidance, your leadership, not because you chased platforms, but because character drew trust. This is how real influence works. The rewritten story gives you the ability to shape environments without force, to bring order without control, to create impact without manipulation. You will no longer need to prove credibility. Your consistency will speak for you. And with that authority comes legacy is not fame. Legacy is not recognition. Legacy is what remains effective long after you leave the room. The choices you make now will echo. The discipline you maintain now will protect what's coming next. The humility you preserve now will keep you grounded when expansion increases. This is why pride was stripped from you earlier. This is why shortcuts were blocked. This is why certain doors stayed closed until now. Because legacy cannot be rushed. Some of you are about to become reference points in your family, your community, your field, your ministry, or your generation. People will look at your life and realize survival does not have to end in bitterness. That delay does not have to end in defeat. That loss does not have to end in limitation. Your story will answer questions people are afraid to ask. And here is something important. The rewrite will require you to stay disciplined even when things get easier. Ease can be just as dangerous as hardship if you lose focus. But you won't, because you remember the process. You remember the nights you almost gave up. You remember the silence that tested your faith. You remember the moments when continuing felt impossible. Those memories will keep you anchored. That's why you won't misuse influence. That's why you won't exploit opportunity. That's why you won't forget where you came from. Gratitude will remain your foundation. And because of that, expansion will be safe. God is rewriting your story in a way that lasts. Not temporary success, not seasonal elevation, but enduring impact. The kind that grows steadily. The kind that multiplies quietly, the kind that doesn't collapse when pressure returns. You are being trusted now, trusted with clarity, trusted with authority, trusted with what others mishandled, and you are ready. You are no longer afraid of responsibility because you understand purpose. You are no longer intimidated by visibility because you are anchored in identity. You are no longer shaken by opposition because you've already survived worse. This is the difference the rewrite makes. You are not stepping into something fragile. You are stepping into something established. And what is established cannot be easily undone. Your story is no longer reactive. It is intentional. Your future is no longer uncertain. It is directed. And as this chapter continues to unfold, one truth becomes undeniable. What God is writing now will outlive the pain that shaped you. There is a moment when a rewritten story settles into truth. When you no longer question whether the change is real, when peace replaces striving, when you stop looking back to see if the old chapter might return. This is that moment. You are no longer waiting for permission to move forward. You are no longer asking whether the past will follow you. The rewrite has taken effect, and what once tried to define you no longer has authority. From this moment, you walk differently. You walk with discernment instead of desperation. You speak with clarity instead of confusion. You choose with confidence instead of fear. This is what happens when authorship changes hands. You didn't just survive, you were preserved. You weren't delayed. You were refined. You weren't rejected. You were redirected. Every closed door shaped your judgment. Every setback sharpened your focus. Every quiet season strengthened your roots, and now the story stands, not fragile, not temporary, not dependent on circumstances, established. There will still be challenges, but they will not define you. There will still be opposition, but it will not derail you. There will still be moments of pressure, but they will not confuse you, because the rewrite didn't just change outcomes, it changed who you. You are no longer living reactively, you are living intentionally. You are no longer repeating cycles, you are creating direction, and as the days unfold, you will notice something unmistakable. Things align without strain, the right conversations happen at the right time, the right opportunities arrive with clarity. The right people recognize your value without explanation. This is not coincidence. This is continuity. What God is writing now is consistent with who you have become. So don't rush, don't compare, don't look sideways. Stay focused on alignment. Stay grounded in gratitude. Stay disciplined in the small things. Because this story is still being written. But now it's moving forward. If you've listened to this message and felt a deep internal confirmation, that is recognition. It's the moment your spirit agrees with what heaven already decided. Receive it, declare it, align with it. Say this quietly or aloud. From this moment, my story is rewritten. Let the past release you. Let the present align you. Let the future meet you prepared. If this message spoke to you, type Amen in the comments to seal it. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to Rise Beyond Average for more messages that build clarity, strength, and purpose. Your story is not ending. It's being rewritten, and it's moving forward, starting now.